Okay guys, I'm going to take a break from my ProMaster conversion. If some of you that know what I do, this is a ProMaster conversion. I've installed this cruise control, this Rostra cruise control. There's a part number right there, and that is the number. Now most of these cruise control, they pretty much all plug in the same way. I wasn't going to do this video, and I apologize, I've already installed this, but I became frustrated obviously with the instructions that you guys, if you do any do-it-yourself, as you know, the instructions these days are terrible. However, I became frustrated. I looked at a couple of YouTube videos, and sometimes I think these guys that are doing these YouTube videos are either shields for the company, because they go, oh, it takes 30 minutes. Well, it took me a lot longer than just 30 minutes, and I had a lot of questions, and you know how the instructions are. I think YouTubers or some of the guys that do these are either shields for the company, or they want to show you how smart they are. So I'm going to try to answer some of your questions that I had and some issues that I had installing this, and give you some tips and tricks. So once again, you look at my video, look at the other videos. If you think what I have to tell you here is valuable, please subscribe to my ProMaster conversion van build, and give me a thumbs up, please. Anyway, this, like I said, I've already installed this, but I think I'm going to be able to help you out on some of the issues that I had. Here's the first tip. The first thing they're going to tell you to do is take the battery out, or disconnect the battery. So you remove this cover. There's 6 of these plastic Phillips or flathead. Take that out, undo the battery. Big tip here, put this panel back in after you have the battery disconnected. I'm going to tell you why. After you got it disconnected, you got this panel back in, there's 3 pieces you're going to need to remove. One is this column up here. And the reason I tell you to put that panel back in is there's 4 Allen screws, one here, and after you get this off, there's one here and one here. They're extremely hard to see. Even if with a pen light and you stick up there, they're small Allen wrenches, and you know how easy those are to strip. Extremely difficult to see. You got to kind of feel around, and first you'll take this off, and then you'll take this off. You have to take the bottom one off, and then you do this. Sure enough, I mean, these Allens are really small, and sure enough, I dropped one, and I had this off, and I was lucky it didn't fall in the battery compartment. Probably, and they're dark in color, so they're really hard to see. So make sure you put that back, so when they do fall, you can retrieve them fairly easily. And take a picture of the seams of the column here on each side, or make a good note of it, because it takes some fiddling to line this back up. It took me like 10 minutes because there's these little tits up here that it connects into. So just be aware of that. So that's a big tip. Allens, try to get a light up there, look at them. I think it's the number 2 millimeter. So that's a big tip right there. Now, as soon as I got everything off, the next thing I did is I looked at the directions here, and you'll get this control box, the black control box. You'll get 3 harnesses that plug into here. Now, before I did anything, I plugged in all these, and I think that was a good way about going it. So this is the accelerator connection. That's the new one. That's the one your old accelerator plugs into, and it plugs in here. Just line it up, and only plugs in one way. Then you got this OBD connector, and it plugs in over here, and you'll have one more. It's a Y connector, which is right here. So it only plugs in one way, and then you got these 2, a white and a black connector that will go to your the controls of your cruise control. So you have 3 harnesses connect into this. One I just showed you here, this one, and then the OBD2 over here. So do that, kind of keep your wires all out of the way, and then you can get up and figure out. I'm going to tell you where I mounted this control box right here. So the first thing is, I got up under here, and the third cowling, before I go into that third cowling I took off, was this one right here. There's I think an 8 millimeter bolt up here. There's a screw over here, and there's a screw right down here. that you pull off, and you kind of wiggle this a little bit because there's a tongue here, and it'll pop out, sort of like a protector, rest so your foot doesn't go back on this control arm over here. So take this off, and the reason is I mounted this black box right here on the directions, right up in there. I don't know if you can see it or not, but right up in there. All right, and the first thing, once you got that mounted up there, you're gonna have a bunch of loose wires. You'll make sure you zip tie them up here. Now here's the red wire too. This is the only loose wire that comes off of that control box right over here, and it will show you the red wire. That's going to be the power that goes to it. Now, if you look, here's the new control they give you. Now this pulls out. It just kind of pulls out with your thumb and your index finger fairly easily. Unplug it, and that will plug in to kind of the dummy one they give you. And the question I had, well, which way does it plug in? It doesn't make a difference. The new one plugs right up on top. This is the new one, and it pushes in just like the old one comes out. You pull it, pop it out, put the new one on, push it in, and it gets locked into place. So that's a big question. I'm like, well, which way does the old one plug into this? And what it is over here, I think it's just a kind of a dummy that it plugs into. I don't think it makes a difference which way you plug it in. So that's the new one that gets plugged in. Then once you got that plugged in, go to your OBD connector, which is right over here, I'm showing you. And once you take the fuse box off, it's setting right up under here. This is it right here. There's two little tits here. You squeeze them, pop out the old one, and it'll just put it back here, and the new one pops in. And it plugs into it only plugs in one way into here. So your new one goes, snaps back into there, and your old one snaps on to, this is the new one, and your old ODB will snap into that. And this snaps right where it's white, and your other one is probably a black in color. So that's that one, okay? So then you jump over, and you have these two right here. You don't do anything with those right now. So, so it's a nice place, like I said. Mount it behind that little footrest there, out of the way, and then you can move on to the one issue, the big issue I had with videos and these instructions. So you got this red wire. You got one wire loose here, this red wire. And all it says here is locate blue-red wire at the ignition switch. It doesn't say to do anything with it. Even the YouTubers, one YouTuber said, off your ignition. Now what you're gonna do, you're gonna have an ignition switch right here. Now when you take this off, right up under your thing here where your ignition is a white connector. And there's two wires going to this connector right up here. And that's your ignition switch, which is right here. There's a blue wire, and there's a blue with a red stripe. Now one of the videos say, well, you cut that wire. And I'm thinking, okay, well, if I cut the wire, well, which end do I connect the red wire, which comes off of the control box? Do I connect it to the one I cut, or do I connect it to the other one? Well, through trial and error, I realized you got to connect it to all three of those. So if you cut that, now you got two wires, you got to strip it back about 3/4 of an inch each one, and it needs to be connected to that red wire that shows you coming down here. Now this is an electrical schematic, because an electrical schematic would tell you, would have a little dot there and show you that 3 wires are connected to it. But hence the instructions and the YouTube videos don't say anything about that. So you have an option on this. You can either cut this wire or try to finagle stripping it back an inch without cutting it, then soldering this red wire, wrapping it around the bare wire, soldering it and taping it really well. But what I did is I cut it, then you got 3 wires. You got the red wire, the one you cut, which is the two, strip those back, and I soldered them. You can imagine, being up in here trying to solder, you're going to drip solder on your hands, so you got to be careful of that. So that's what you got. You got to connect all 3 of those. That red wire has to be connected to this red and blue wire, and it has to maintain its circuit just like it was. Okay. Okay. Then once you got that, you're almost done. Now, as far as your control arm, which is right here, 3/8 drill, because once you have this off, this comes off away from your control arm here, and you just drill your hole here, and then you have these two connectors that are loose, a white one and a black one. Don't connect those to these wires yet. This goes to your control arm over here. Feed those through that 3/8 hole, and then you can take those, and believe it or not, they kind of snap pretty nicely into these two things, and you follow the directions on the colors of the wires, and the connectors actually will only plug in, and that's kind of your Y harness that comes off of the control box, and those are your only wires that are left. And they only actually plug in one way. There's little notches on the bottom of these. Just make sure that they line up right, and these things kind of snap in. And those are the controls for your control arm here that you're gonna do for your cruise control handle. And that's pretty much this video. I hope that helped you guys. Like I said, that red blue wire is probably your biggest. One other thing you could probably wire nut those three wires on this, but probably not the best of idea. Yeah, if you didn't have the capability, obviously that's what you have to do. Just make sure you get a really good connection on them, wire nut them and all that. So that's the video. Hope this helped you out. Please give me a thumbs up and subscribe, and follow me on my van conversion. I'm almost done with my walls over here. So good luck and stay safe, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.